Now look at this.
What's up, everyone? We're going to do topic 7.6, evidence of evolution. There's 5 different pieces of evidence we can use for evolution: geographical, geological, mathematical, physical, and biochemical. So as we see here, based on the fossil evidence, they were able to put Pangea back together. So they were able to see where these organisms kind of were due to their fossil evidence. And so they could find the, geographical regions of them, as well as they could look at geological data to determine information. Also, when we think about geological data, we're able to figure out when specific things happen. So we're able to know exactly when oxygen first emerged on Earth because of the iron bands that you might see on the fossil evidence. Physical structures deals with like homologous structures or vestigial structures. These are structures that are the same as they had in our ancestors, but they have been modified for different functions. And we'll come to those again in a little bit. Biochemical data has to do with the molecular stuff. So looking at proteins, looking at DNA, and look at the number of differences there are between the DNA structures or between the protein structures of certain things. And mathematical data is where you bring in Hardy-Weinberg and you start thinking about the frequency of different alleles in the population and how that's changing over time. So fossil evidence is just looking at preserved remains or traces of different ancient organisms. And this is going to be found where sedimentary rock is. Now, our fossil record is not complete. If an organism was not found in a certain region or it didn't die in a certain region, if there wasn't enough of those organisms, it may not have gotten fossilized in that sedimentary rock. So within these fossils, we're able to get bone structures, we're able to get maybe teeth and scales, these different hard structures that were within organisms, and we can compare those. We're also sometimes able to extract molecular evidence. So like some DNA might be able to be extracted. And so from that, we're able to use fossils as good evidence. Fossils are also used for carbon dating. So if you don't remember this from chemistry, there's these different isotopes. So isotopes are going to have the same number of protons, but a different number of neutrons. So there could be carbon-12, which is the one we normally see, carbon-13, and carbon-14. And so with carbon dating, what they'll use is they're going to determine the amount of carbon-14 that there is in comparison to carbon-12, so they can then determine how much time has passed, so they can see how much has decayed in it. Decaying talks about like half-life. So the amount of time it takes for half of the material to break down is 1 half-life. So sometimes you get asked which one's better, DNA or protein, in terms of evidence. And DNA is going to be better evidence because of the fact that you can see the silent mutations, you can see changes that are taking place in the introns, all these things that might be removed or not actually coded within the protein. Versus the protein, all you see are the amino acids. And so when looking at that data, you're trying to figure out which one has the least number of differences. The least differences means the more closely related. Homologous structures are going to be the exact same structure as our ancestors had. They have this slight modification due to different functionality. So like the bat is going to fly, the whale is going to, of course, swim, the cat's going to pounce, and all that fun stuff. Sometimes we run across analogous structures. Analogous structures have to do with that they have the exact same shape and function within multiple organisms, but they have no common ancestry. It has to do with that they were a similar solution to a similar problem, and so that's why they look so similar and they act so similar, but they're not actually related to one another. Y'all, I forgot one of our evidences of evolution. Embryology. These organisms are going to have the same embryonic development because they share an ancestor. So like if you look at the fish, the reptile, the bird, and the human, we are all related by a common ancestor. As you notice, they all have a postanal tail. Yes, you had a tail until like later on in development when you had apoptosis, which removed your tail, but you did have a tail. These pharyngeal gill slips, you have the notochord, you have all these different features that are similar between our ancestors. Remember, apoptosis, bye y'all.